Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment in our virtual reading series here at CavanKerry Press. Folks, we've been doing this reading series since a little before COVID in 2020, and we're almost at 40 virtual readings in. We're one reading away. This is reading number 39. So, is that something to celebrate during Women's History Month? We are going to have such an awesome, awesome evening today because we have both Aimee and Nadia with us. One in celebrating Women's History Month, where women are making history with all of these wonderful books and these wonderful conversations. And we are celebrating the release of Beyond the Watershed by Nadia Alexis. Here's the rundown for this evening. We are going to have a brief land acknowledgement done by myself. Afterwards, we are going to transition, and Aimee is going to be our moderator for the evening, and she is going to hold court and conversation with Nadia. If you're going to have questions throughout the night, please put it in the chat. If you hear any beautiful bangers, which I'm sure is going to happen either by Aimee or Nadia, please put that in the chat too, because they will be receiving that chat after this is said and done. This is also going to be recorded, as you see, and put on YouTube. So hi, folks watching on YouTube at a later date. I love technology because we could be in the present and in the future both at the same time. And this is a past and a history as we are speaking. So before we start, let me begin with our land acknowledgement. And I will also include a visual description. So my name is Dimitri Reyes, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Director at CavanKerry Press. I am a brown male in his early 30s. I have medium length brown black hair with brown and black glasses and a bushy beard. I am wearing a blue thermal, and I am in my book nook with Oceanic and Beyond the Watershed front and center. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the latest in CavanKerry's series of virtual readings celebrating our new and forthcoming releases. Before the reading begins, we wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that the land we occupy in Bergen County, New Jersey, belongs to the Munsee Lenape people. We honor their history. We cannot function in our work as arts activists, nor offer a safe space for all writers without understanding the struggle for Indigenous rights. We have added to the chat a map of native lands for you to identify which land you occupy, and also links to the few resources for you to learn more and/or offer your support. Finally, we wanted to take a moment to address the ongoing consequences and far-reaching implications of the new administration's assault on progressive values in the U.S., especially for communities that have been strategically underserved, poorly cared for, and exploited throughout the history of our country, particularly the arts and literature. While CavanKerry occupies but a small space in the publishing landscape, we have always made it our business to care for the very people whose well-being is most under threat, and our commitment remains steadfast. We believe in the power of words to uplift communities and connect individuals from all backgrounds and experiences, and we will continue the vital work of our publishing and programming in order to foster a safe and welcoming environment for all writers. Thank you for that. I will now read our author bios and then pitch it over to Aimee. First, our queen of the evening, Nadia Alexis of Harlem. She's a New York City native, and she's a poet, writer, photographer, and daughter of Haitian immigrants. Her writing has been published in Poets and Writers, The Global South, Shenandoah, Wild Imperfections, an anthology of womanist poems, and others. A fellow of both the Watering Hole and the Callaloo Creative Writing Workshop, she has received several honors, including the 2023 Poet of the Year of the Haitian Creatives Digital Award, a 2020 semifinalist of the 92Y Discovery Poetry Contest, and the 2019 Honorable Mention Poetry Prize from the Hurston Wright College Writers Award. She holds an MFA and a PhD from University of Mississippi. Aimee Nezhukumatathil is the author of the New York Times best-selling illustrated collections of nature essays, World of Wonders in Praise of Fireflies, Whale Sharks, and Other Astonishments, which was chosen as Barnes & Noble's Book of the Year and named a finalist for the Curtis Prize. She also wrote 4 previous poetry collections, Oceanic, Lucky Fish, At the Drive-In Volcano, and Miracle Fruit. With the poet Ross Gay, she co-authored the chapbook Lace and Pyrite, a collaboration of epistolary garden poems. Her writing appears twice in the Best American Poetry Series, the New York Times Magazine, ESPN, Plowshares, American Poetry Review, and the Paris Review. And available now, Bite by Bite, Nourishments and Jamborees by HarperCollins is an illustrated essay collection celebrating food, how it can be a locus for care, grief, desire, nostalgia, drawing on research, and personal memoir. We have two very powerful voices in front of us. I'm going to beam myself out now, and I'm going to beam Nadia out for just a second. And everyone, please put your hands together at home for Aimee.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dimitri. I just wanted to give some context for who I am too, for everybody out there on Zoom. I am an Asian American. I'm half Indian, half South Asian, half Filipino. I have short curly hair. I'm wearing a t-shirt to represent my senior son who is graduating. And today was his special senior day for tennis. They're the Oxford Chargers, so I have a lightning bolt on my shirt. And oh, I'm terrible at these. I have light brown skin. And anyway, I want to get right to the meat of the matter, and that is I'm so excited for you all to be here to honor Nadia Alexis's book, Beyond the Watershed. Gosh, there's so much. I know these poems inside and out already. And just for people who don't know, I was on Nadia's MFA committee, and I was also on her PhD committee. So, I just associate Nadia with my entire, and she was also in my very first workshop I ever taught in the state of Mississippi. And I just associate Nadia as being kind of like this soothing, calming presence in class, but also just a tour de force on the page. And I knew this day would come. I know she's going to be like rolling her eyes at me off screen, but I said it probably the second week of classes, probably to the annoyance of other people in class. But it's true. I don't want to be one of those annoying people who said I called it, but I knew that she would be having a book. It was just a matter of when. And I guess I just want to say too, in terms of, I don't want to only put Nadia in terms of being a student, because I also want to highlight how much she taught me, and how much I learned from her without getting like weepy and also annoying. But I, I I'm choosing my words carefully here. I want to say that working with Nadia was especially gratifying to me because it taught me how much poems can change and how dynamic they can be once you push up your sleeves and do the revision, do the work. I would have to say Nadia is one of just a handful of poets that I've worked with here who really took revisions seriously. And the result is many of these stunning poems in the book. I also wanted to say how much I learned from her on how powerful a visual image can be. I'm supremely biased, I know, but I defy anybody in 2025 to show me a more visually stunning book than this. And I want to give you a sneak peek. Throughout the book are Nadia's own self-portraits that she took herself in the woods of Mississippi. And I know that was not easy for her to do, but I wanted to show you, there's one in particular. What is it? It's towards the end. Without giving too much away, hopefully, Nadia, this is okay, but it just shows this beautiful, strong body, this feminine figure in the woods, this glowing white being. And I think this picture in particular represents the kind of the tour de force that is a guide that walks you through this book, that walks you through the forest. And it's just when she asked me to be here and chat with her about these poems, I was like, that was the easiest yes. So I'm just so thrilled to have you witness this gorgeous work and this gorgeous reader, and really for my money, the prettiest book of 2025. I'm calling it now as well. Please give a round of applause to Nadia. How we're going to work this is that she's going to read for about 20 minutes. I'm going to chat with her, ask her questions, and then we're going to open it up for question and answers. So as you're hearing her, please type in questions and we'll tackle them at the end. So Nadia, come on out and let's give a round of applause for Nadia.
Thank you. So I'm going to read some poems from the book. I have them on a poster here in case I forget. But I'm going to start with the title poem, which is also the first poem of the book. And thank you, Aimee, for that amazing introduction. I was definitely crying, and I don't have any tissue nearby, so I was able to keep it together. But thank you, CavanKerry. Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and being here. And supporting me, a lot of people for years, and I'm just really grateful. And these poems exist partly because of y'all. Watershed. I arrive at my father's feet, a dying mapu tree. He covers his eyes with mud while goats feast on my fallen hair. I hear my mother call for the Lord to send just enough rain for our lungs and her carnations to see a new season. My mother always said boys are best at taking. I once loved a boy who turned pomegranates in my yard into salt. In the mirror, I see a donkey's head without a home. Daisies dance atop her hair, and she teaches me how to wail for cover. My mother and I kneel on uncooked rice. Sweat of our hands no longer remembers its owner. Our knees become prunes. One night I see my father weep and rock like a forgotten river, how he must know what it's like to fight against disappearance. The longer I stay in the home my lover and I built on this mountain, the more I tire of circadian leaps into the field of cacti. Every year, Lake Azuye rises and forces change on the trees and birds and people of the watershed. They no longer believe the water will leave them. I spend nights running from hail and the company of vultures. I make peace with the ways my father and I look away from errors and ruin. My parents make rituals of warnings, and I follow in their footsteps anyway. My mother says I can build a new home from clouds, and I believe her. Next poem I will read is called Trails. Also, a lot of these poems I wrote in Aimee's workshops. I took 3 workshops with Aimee. Anytime Aimee was teaching the grad workshop, I took the class because it was just really amazing, and it helped me to experiment. Trails. When no one is looking, I open my hands and wait for clouds to spring forth. Trails in my palms sing of thirst. I have my father's eyes and impulse at laughter. When morning is a dark thing, I put seeds in a bird feeder, hoping one will come and give me a reason to return home. Tell me secrets of keeping a garden alive. How many parts water against unmasking? Tell me how to break down locked windows. I have orchids and weeds and butterflies and sunflowers and ignoring my father's calls. I have gods in my throat starting a fire. The next poem I will read is called Cantaloupe. And I don't really give intros too much when I read, but I will say that Joseph Lugaspi, who is a pressmate, has a poem called Watermelon, and Aimee taught that. And initially, I tried to do a watermelon poem. It was just like free writing. And then I thought, let me do a cantaloupe because I grew up eating cantaloupe a lot. And so his poem was kind of like an origin story poem. And maybe this is not an origin story poem, but it's significant. Cantaloupe. 1. I am 10 the first time Ma let me split the skin of a cantaloupe without her. My knee still bandaged and burning from a fall I took on the playground that day. While playing tag, a classmate pushes me like she wants the ground to remember it. I don't push back, tell my teacher instead and declare I wish it was a half day. When I get home, I tell Ma I'm aching for sugar and numbing. So she hands me a knife and I lay the tough skinned fruit on its side, cut the 2 shortest ends and watch them fall like playing cards. I think back to the breaking, stand it upright to make it into a split sun. Ma offers to redress my wound in ointment. I dig up and toss innards like they're memories I want to bury. There is no aloe vera here. Cut cantaloupe until flesh resembles square-shaped Lego bricks. Devour several slices before I place the others to rest in the Tupperware. 2. My sisters and I climb the plastic-adorned couch in our living room. Mountains of clothes and blankets all over the rug for extra cushion. Today we dive into an ocean, bellies full of fruit blessings and minds still on fire from a story Ma told us about a Black girl in Harlem who could fly like a bird. We want to turn into dolphins and fly. We know we can wish this. Feet steadied, hands on each other's shoulders, knees bent for the journey. There's nothing like the thirst of Black girls who believe in their own dreams. Cantaloupe juice can only quench so much. We fly and dive into the water we built, bellies pointed up and down as we lie, with bodies transformed into wind. Okay, it's gonna get a little sad. This poem is called I Don't Own Any Watches. So, my lover told the air not to come around here anymore. It doesn't matter that I wear the pleading so well. How my chest holds a sickness only my lover's watch could have implanted. Saturday morning and no ray in sight as he sits in a dorm room chair, just big enough to keep him from falling. He calls me over, gives me 10 seconds or he'll teach me an old lesson. The skin surrounding my right eye is still dyed black from his fist the last time his voice fell from his lips that way. 10. Lord, where are your arms? 9. Will today be the day dead bees fall out of me? 8. The inner winding organs rest with hunger. 7. How many bald hands will it take to collapse into number? 6. His foot tap against the floor sounds like sucking birds. 5. Will I remember what it feels like to be a woman lodged in an occasional love? 4. I want to be soft beyond the orbit of these veins. 3. I'm ready to bury the gamble. 2. Who has the recipe for making feasts with scraps of time? 1. I sprint to his Arctic lap. Can he hear me? Conjure, wrists disappeared into wildfires. All right, the next one is called A Fable and Superstition. And don't step over someone's outstretched legs or they won't grow. Grow like sunflowers in a field of other sunflowers. Grow like skin grows back when it bursts. Bursting balloons grow with faith and lungs. The lungs hold what we can't see. See the fledgling open its eyes and make cake of flight, move like the clouds move with anticipation, and the gaze upturned eyes. Turn your gaze upward and resist scratching your arm when you are pregnant and in the middle of a meal. You'll be marked forever. Blood marks a spot where he left you on your belly, with dirt on your hands. Place your hands over your broken teeth. The elders always find some use for helping another child or three. The next poem is called Pray, and it's spelled Prey, not the other one. My lover once said a woman is best with a mouth as a closed door. If she should want to open it, let it be brief and of bright blooms. If she should dare to make herself bigger than a man with her voice full of restless bells, she must be ready to make war with hands bare. If she can't, she must nail her tongue to a tree's bark, or he'll bury her into earth's belly. I no longer wish to be the ground carrying him. No longer wish to follow rules that drain me of fresh water. Today, I am guilty of becoming a falcon, every bit of him for my consumption. For years, I have felt alone and dry-bellied, but tonight, I am Ezeli Danto's child, armed with scarred rivers, scarred vines, and silver. I strike and he falls like leaves under the weight of a half-woman, half-mountain. The next one is an Obad poem, and this is one of the oldest poems in here, in this book. Obad after the storms. Wounded rooster sings of morning like it wants to forget the night, invites my eyes to open like curtains. Sunlight breaks the window pane, a reminder that my favorite season is still here. Mouth of the beach awaits me. I wake and try to wash what he left of me in ruins. Towel press droplets into my skin like gauze after a drawing of blood. Grab a blue dress from its hanger and search for peace in the cotton folds. I walk down an empty road and glance at a man's beard, the color of a pigeon's back. He smiles at me like I am kin. I smile back, though we look nothing alike. Wind propels my cypress legs forward, embraces knees that want nothing more than to pummel the ground. I arrive at the beach where armies of waves cut into sand like ma split fresh bread. Hairs on my arms stand in longing for home in my former lover's palm. Despite beatings of his voice and hands, they say missing an abuser is normal. Yet one day you'll return to your reflection with sky of you, more often blue than barren. The next poem is a long title. Suppose you failed to cover your mouth, and so evil spirits flew out of your body. And your throat became an abandoned rose garden beneath the blue storm of your mouth. And one spirit is the man who killed your mother under a wolf moon in the middle of the 10th blackout that summer. And he struck her with enough help from serpents and zombies hiding in New York City alleys after long days of searching for sugar and freedom. Or maybe there was a spirit of the woman who flew through the night sky with wings made of her sleeping brethren's dreams, and pieces of the river with her, building a new shed on mullets and pebbles and mountain song and blood of women washing their best, or maybe there are spirits who are sisters who traded bird and sun-loved skin and laughter and candy air, who tended to each other's bruised backs and ruptured tongues with mango innards, and maybe in the midst of this, you forget to use your palms and forearms to shield you from a voracious fall. I have two more poems left. Thank you, everybody. I see the chat is on fire, but I can't read it yet. This is a nocturne poem, and it's so funny because when I was preparing for this and trying to figure out what I would read, I came across a craft essay that I did as part of a final for one of my grad classes. It was a class with Aimee. And I was talking about the significance of a nocturne poem. And Aimee had encouraged me to write more nocturne poems. And I do have more. They're just drafts. But I learned in my research that um, when it comes to violence against victims of abuse, a lot of it happens at night. And so it felt very significant to be writing nocturne poems for that reason, but also, other things happen at night too, reflection and there's safety at night as well. But it was really cool to learn about some facts about nighttime and abuse and things like that. Um, Nocturne. I'm getting used to undressing in this dying wilderness. Now that he's banned from my home, when sky darkens and thickens with breaths that once were, I think I hear him outside my front door. This is normal. Intense fears after the scorching. Dormant memories fly out the body's openings. No warnings. Desires to avoid places that remind me, even if place is home. Tonight a stray cat stands on my back deck and wails as if she's tired of aching for us both. My ivory slip hugs me like it knows it's my own kind of moon. I flip on the deck's light. Her amber eyes claw mine, and she runs. Perhaps she doesn't want to see me standing like a tree stripped of its leaves and water. This protection order guides me through split existence, a forest after partial clearing. With the blinds open, I let the slip become its own rainfall. Trust the air on my uncovered body. Some nights I wish to rush growth by plunging my feet in soil, that I could make sense of wondering if he's eaten, if he mourns, yet my body can't forget being cut through its heartwood. Each day I show up everywhere, fighting to be a steady dwelling. Um, I'm gonna read, I might read two more actually, but I'm gonna read two more. Um, Letter to my friend Robert, and then the next one will be Someday I'll Love Nadia Alexis. And the letter to my friend Robert poem was actually a letter to a friend, one of my poet friends in New York, Robert Gibbons. And it was written during the pandemic. And my family is from New York, as y'all know, I'm from New York. So it was really hard to write and things like that and be so far away. So in order for me to write, a lot of times I had to take walks, and I really love Mississippi landscapes. Even driving home from work, I have a 30-minute drive from work. Because we had some bad weather in the state the other day, I think they prematurely cut down some trees um, in certain areas. And on my drive home and on my drive to work, it looks so different. And for me, it felt like I had stepped into a different timeline or something. If that makes any sense, I'm having trouble recognizing where I'm driving through. It feels different. So anyway, I had a similar experience during the pandemic. Um, Letter to my friend Robert. This morning, this morning, I wanted to write, so I changed into my outside clothes, unlocked the door, and walked onto my block, where I thought of my father, whose favorite hobby is walking up and down and around the streets of Harlem against my understanding, until today, when I find myself seeking some kind of fire in the air. And now I'm a couple of blocks and beats of birdsong away from my Mississippi doorstep, passing by a fenced-in white dog who barks and growls at me like she believes I've taken something from her, or she is displeased with unshuttered windows, absent of human bodies, peering through to see about her. And oh, how green it is today, that I am almost in disbelief at how nature changes in a matter of hours, or the 2 weeks it's been since I returned to the mouth of this trail on a chilly, overcast afternoon. I was met with downed trees strewn about, as if all that mattered was their continued proximity to home. And this comforted me, despite my deepest love being them standing alive. And today I'm convinced some God came by and dropped off a new forest and new eyes for those who beg for relief, as sudden as this vision I have of an imaginary father addicted to walking because it lets him time travel to other worlds, almost like watching a film. And some days he doesn't know what he'll get, and maybe there's magic in not knowing, that one day you could arrive at the heart of a lake and there are guitars and drums and keyboards floating in the breeze, playing tunes that feel familiar and unfamiliar, and you can dance and then pray to the edge of a fallen leaf, turn yourself inside out, and oh, Robert, this trail is a whisperer and a mirror I wish you could see, and please do tell if you have a spot in Brooklyn like this trail that implores me to take what I need and leave an offering, if I have one to give, and journey back to myself to arrive at a blank page and call it green, call it mockingbird, call it train, call it break, call it blue. And so the last poem I will read is called Someday I'll Love Nadia Alexis. And I think, yeah, the first verse. So Ocean Vuong has a poem that is called Someday I'll Love Ocean Vuong. Then Roger Reeves has, and it's from a line in a Frank O'Hara poem. And there's like a lot of other Someday I'll Love poems. So this is mine, which is really interesting to read now because I feel like, well, I the version of me that wrote the poem needed to write the poem, and I feel like I'm reading it when I have arrived already. So someday I'll love Nadia Alexis. I know this, but again we offer our wings for the plucking, because venturing into fire some nights is more home than dancing on moonlit ground, to worship the reach and freedom of our shadows, untouchable. This is what we long for. This is what we know. It's okay that we make feasts of memories that refuse to leave our body. Still, more woman than wound, more festival than forsaken. Nadia, do not forget that you are still here. Here we are made of tulips and singing sunsets, and tired ever returning to the doors of new homes we dream up from thick air. Look how we wear glory and stumble, and jewels we collect with imperfect intention in baskets we found along the way. A white candle burns for our future. It matters that we almost killed our oceans, that we almost let him bury us too. But sometimes failures are blessings, Every moment we spend putting water and air back into our body is worth getting to the someday we know is waiting. Even as we work to shake the fear of extended hands attached to harmless faces that remind us of his smothering, of nightmares of being lost in foreign woods that reject the sun and us, we will not let the scars be the only map we see. Consider our mother, the hope in her passed along to us is a field of trees that can't be cut, no matter the weapons. Consider our grandmother and hers, all of us, daughters of light and steel, of rivers flowing two ways, of yearly independent soup. We've got machete and spirit and our own everlasting, overgrown gardens. Thank you.
Wow, Nadia, that was brilliant. Thank you. All right, Amy, I'm going to
Thank
patch
you.
you in.
Excellent. Nadia, that was so beautiful. Oh my goodness. And I'm so glad you read, Nadia was just here in Oxford, Mississippi, a couple weeks ago, and I'm so glad you read some new ones. Just I'm hearing and I'm hearing different things in some of the poems you read before. So it's just such a pleasure. You guys, you have to fix your life and get this book here. It is the one to watch for 2025. Um, well,
Thank
Nadia, I
you.
mean, I have so much I want to say. I so much I want to ask you, just kind of selfishly as a poet too, but I also want to open it up to just maybe there's some people in the audience that have never written a poem or maybe have always wanted to try. So the first part of it, I will maybe I'll frame for people who are poetry curious, you know, that kind of thing. So more from a teaching thing. Um, can you talk about something that struck me as you were reading this time around? Um, is how do you navigate family in in a book of poems, even in just a single poem, family figures, like in particular a mother figure or a father figure, um and again I even as close as I have worked with you, I never want to assume anything, but how do you deal with that on your own personally, like to like I'm always curious with poets, does your mom read your poems? How do you not have like a miniature mom on your shoulder looking over as you're typing? I'm almost telling on myself because it's something that I struggle with all the time. It's every book still feels new. Like I'm like, oh, who's gonna read this in my family and who's not? That kind of thing. Can you talk about that? Because when I last taught a poetry workshop for brand new beginners, that was their number one question is I want to write a little bit from my life, not all from my life, but I don't even know how to start because I'm worried about um, ghosts or ancestors or living people seeing themselves in my book. So maybe and you can answer as personal or as not on this, but just how do you begin to write family figures in poems?
Well, I see it as I experienced those family figures in certain ways growing up,
Mm,
and those are my experiences, so
mm,
I can write about them, you know.
okay, so it
And
doesn't even
my
occur to
my
you to be afraid.
huh?
I was gonna say, so it doesn't even occur to you to be feeling some kind of way about putting your own business out there.
It does. It
Yeah.
did. It
Mm.
did previously, but um the poems just had to come out, you know. They just came out, and like, does my mom read my poetry? She came to remember for my MFA reading. That was the first time she heard me read my poetry.
Oh, wow.
Um, I don't know if she was really reading it like that though, so that probably helped.
Yeah.
That probably helped.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that she was reading it. She's reading my book now, but that does help too because I didn't have to worry about that. But For me, it's like these are my experiences, and so I can write about them. And I used to censor myself a bit, and I met Edwidge. I think this was the first time I met Edwidge Dantika back in the day. Like it was, I don't know. I'm gonna look at my phone and see. I think it was 2012 or something like that, or around
Okay.
there, 2012, around there, at the Brooklyn Book Festival. And I was telling her that I want to write about certain things, and but I'm like afraid to, or I don't, I don't want to, because it's culturally it's taboo
Sure.
to be writing, putting your business out there. Haitian culture, we don't really do that. You keep that a secret.
Yeah.
And so I asked her about it, and she told me about how I shouldn't censor myself,
Mm.
and she gave a nice little account on why, and I took that to heart. So that was early on in my poetry journey, 2012, 13.
Great.
And I just came to an awareness of like I deserve to tell these
Mm.
stories, but
Uh,
um I think also I had to come to a space where I could see people, family members, in a more complex way, like my dad in a more complex way, so that I can write better poems.
mm.
And so I had to go through my own, process with that.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I wrote that down because I want to, I just love that quote so much. I deserve to tell these stories. I think deserve is one of those words in poetry where it's like, oh, who are you to say what you deserve and whatnot? And I love that you are just unabashedly owning that. Say like, I deserve to write about this, and I like too that it didn't just come overnight. I like that you mentioned too that it was a struggle at first and you did have some legit, feelings of hesitation and things like that. And then it kind of just became, I'm done feeling that way. I deserve to tell these stories. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I want to
Um,
add
oh, go
that
ahead.
Edwidge Danticat basically was like, if you censor yourself, you're not going to write the best kind of work. You're not going to, it's going to impact you as an artist.
Mm.
However way she said it, I was like, oh no, that means I'm like, I ain't going to be able to write. I'm not going to be able to do what I feel like I'm called to do. I
Hmm.
can't remember her exact words, but it was just like, that made sense to me. If you are like, you know, letting
Yeah.
fear be in the driver's seat, then there's
Hmm.
only so far you can get. And so I stopped thinking about who was going to see the poems. But yeah, that felt like the stakes were raised real high. So,
Excellent. And I love that too. It's when she puts it that way, it's
mm,
like, you can't control awards, you can't control lists, but you can control whether or not you're going to censor yourself, or you're going to control whether or not you're going to be putting your best foot, bring all your talent, but also bring all the stories that you and the poems and the narratives that you need to get out there. And I'm just thinking and it kind of coincides with my next, more of a statement, but I'm just thinking, I think I told you, I think Dimitri asked too, like, hey, there seems to be a mistake. You have 3 copies here. I'm like, no, there's no mistake, because I know so many people that I'm gifting this to, people who I know who've struggled writing about abuse, or, they don't want to be pitied, or, any kind of way. I was like, this is the handbook. It kind of is like,
mm,
I truly fully believe that. Like, I can only say so much, but look at how a person writes these, you know, I always say seemingly personal because I don't want to share that. But now that you have said that here, these personal moments, and how it becomes transformed into something else. And it's really nothing short of magical, especially, I mean, I wrote this, I always like finding, this from workshop, but I always like finding the t-shirt kind of slogan that comes from either a chapbook or a poem, and the t-shirt that I want. So merch, CavanKerry, a CavanKerry to put this for Nadia, just an idea. I want this on a t-shirt. I have just learned to drive like roads are mine. What is it? Oh wait, where is? Oh, no, 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 that's another one. See, there's so many t-shirts here. The one I want on a t-shirt is, We've got machete and spirit and our own everlasting overgrown gardens. And I love that it's a
That's a
we,
good idea.
right? It's not, it's, I love that it's a we, and that just talks about your, that just shows your generate spirit, not just on the page, but how you tackle community. And I think one of the sweetest things here is just looking at who's in attendance. There's so many people from people who've been in class with you that are showing you up and just wanting to support you, and that doesn't happen if you don't also cultivate community and if you aren't there for other people as well. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, that you have so many people from Mississippi workshops that are supporting you. And I just love that sentiment. We've got machete and spirit and our own everlasting gardens. It's not just I, Nadia, can do this, it's we together. So I just love that so much. So t-shirt ideas there. But let me get to some
Mhm.
more questions for you. And because I know other people here in the chat have questions as well. Um, can you talk about the arrangement? There's some people, so I asked a question for beginning poets, now a little bit more advanced, people who are putting together their own manuscripts, and maybe people who've written books before but are just need another fresh just start on how to think about organizing a manuscript. In your table of contents, you have these you have the prayers to and I want to get the pronunciation right. It's Azili, is that right? Azili?
Easily,
Azili
yeah.
Danto.
Mhm.
There's prayers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it separates it comes at about maybe every 6 or 7 poems. You have another prayer for Azalea Danto. One thing, can you talk about Azalea Danto? Just give in a nutshell who this figure is, what they represent for you, but also how do you arrange? I'll just put it plainly, like how did you arrange this book? What were you looking for? The beginning and the end poem, that kind of thing, just for people who are interested. I know oftentimes poets are like, well, I read a poem, a poetry book, beginning to end. And then there's other poets who say, I like to dip around a little bit, that kind of thing. How does it feel on the arranging end of it? What did you want or hope for, I guess, that kind of thing in arranging this book?
Mhm. Well, Ezeli Danto is a Loa and Haitian voodoo, and I don't really know what the American, like the English word for that is. I guess we can say deity.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say it's
so,
yeah.
hmm,
Yeah, I
and
was just gonna say it's ethereal. It's not of this planet, that kind of thing.
hmm and I was doing research, and I wanted to know if there was a Loa for anyone, or an Orisha. So I did look into Orisha, but I found that there was a law for survivors, victims of abuse, um, whether they were women or children. And so
Mm,
once I learned that about her, I was like, oh yeah,
yeah,
let me
perfect.
write in conversation with her. And I think there used to be called like correspondence with or something, and it was like one big poem.
Mm.
And I thought about making them sonnets because they're like kind of like almost sonnets, but I was like, no, they're not sonnets or whatever. And someone had given me feedback once and was like, why don't you make them a sonnet? I was like, because I don't want to. I don't want to. I thought about making because they're linked. Like
Yeah.
the last line of each poem is the first line of the next one, and so that's who she is. And then the ordering of it. So I feel like, oh, I have to double check, but the book was not always arranged this way for sure. And the I think what it was is that they were not as intentionally placed throughout the book. And I came up with an order to it, which was maybe a little mixed before. And so the order that I ended up going with, I actually paid someone to reorder my manuscript for me because I felt too close to it and I just needed someone else's eyes. Um, and I really liked what she did because it really took people on a journey. I wanted us to start, in a younger space and then kind of see the person go on a journey where they're coming to awareness. Um, I wanted the book to end on a certain note. I didn't want people to feel sad at the end.
Mhm.
And so the emotional journey that I was interested in, I mean, it's kind of up and down throughout, but ultimately we land um, at a place that I think is hopeful and softer.
Yeah.
And that was really important because I was thinking about who might be reading the book. Who
Mm.
do I definitely want to read the book? I want anybody to read the book who would read it, but thinking about other survivors and what kind of experience I wanted to give them. And that was part of why I chose to include photographs as well, so you can kind of see the Black female figure in the ways that she wants to show you herself. So,
Yeah.
the images are blurred, and that's intentional, right? And, I'll only let you see as much as I want you to see.
Yeah.
And I'll only let you see as much of my becoming that I want you to see in terms of the speakers in the poem.
Mm. Yeah, and this the speaker, the subject of the poems, you, what I love
Mhm.
about these photos, again, these photos are just works of art, is that, like you said, the figure is blurred, but it's so crisp. You could almost count the leaves like 20
Mhm.
yards back. It's that detailed. It's so crisp. That's what's in focus. And yet the figure, and that kind of is a nice metaphor for the book, the figure is dynamic. It's not stagnant. It's not just stuck in outdoors or stuck in Mississippi. It is moving, and just you're lucky to catch even a glimpse. You should be glad, to catch a glimpse. And and there's so much power and gentleness, and yet the dress is soft as well. So it's really, that's why I say, like, it's not hyperbole. I think your photos do such a good job of serving as just metaphors. It's kind of a map on how to read the book entirely too. One of the strengths in this collection that I think it has to be said is that, I teach nature writing, I teach environmental literature, and oftentimes you do see um, the body in the outdoors, but it's so rare, and which you do so beautifully here, of course, both in the photos and in the content of the poems. But it's so rare to be able to do with the same skill as putting um, the body in an urban landscape. Can you talk about how landscape is was working for you in this book? Because I can't think of a book actually. That's one of the signature things about this book, is that you tackle the outdoors, specifically Mississippi outdoors, which doesn't often get talked about in books, but then you talk about an urban landscape as well. And I can imagine it being so clear that one is your strength and not the other, but they're both so dynamic and so moving. And it makes me want to be in the city, but it also makes me want to be in this, in a rural part of Mississippi. So can you talk about that? Can you talk about how awesome that is with with you? Um, can you talk about
Thank
how
you.
awesome you are? Yeah.
Um, I think it's really interesting because place holds memory.
Yeah.
And, there were literally places in New York that when I would walk through the street, what I thought about those places changed depending on what may have happened to me
Okay.
out
Yeah.
in the street or something like that. And so I think there's those kind of things, but there's also like um, you associating place with certain positive experiences. I feel like place makes up who we are and vice versa. And so I think I'm interested in that in my poetry. Um, but I've been to Haiti a couple of times, and I think that when I was a kid, and I think being able to be in the river and things like that, and walking up the mountain, because I had family members that lived on top of a mountain, and you had to walk up the mountain. That was so scary, walking up and having to walk down. I think it's just very, very much been in my life. And you, place can change you too and open things up. And even like, on a trip to Alabama, picking up photography in 2014, I just kind of knew that heading south was where I should go in terms of my studies, but also in terms of my artistic practice. At which at one point I was just thinking was writing, and then the photography became more of a thing. Like I realized that I wanted to make art photography, fine art photography. And so that was significant as well. The photographs were made in 2018 and 2019. And so I don't know, it's just like a lens through which I'm able to make sense of certain experiences. I very much feel like I am a tree, like I'm a bird as much as like a bird or a tree is. And like, what does that mean? I don't know. A poem will kind of tell me what that
Yeah.
means, right? And I enjoyed the process of making images in my book, and I feel like in my poetry, in my work, and I feel like there's so much in the natural world, whether we're talking about, somewhere in New York City, some pigeons, or down here in Mississippi. So it opened up a lot for me. It opened up whole new worlds, as they say.
Excellent, excellent. I'm so good. That actually is like perfect segue into my next question. And then soon we're going to open it up for question and answer. So go ahead and have comments and questions in the chat for Nadia. But Nadia, so two questions. One is a little bit shorter. The other one might be maybe it's just an expansion of your last answer. Is do you ever get, because I get this all the time when I'm traveling, do you get people raising their eyebrows or just some sort of effect, some sort of question when they find out that you live and teach in Mississippi? Do you ever get any question of like an eyebrow raise, like how do you make art in Mississippi? How can you stand, that kind of thing, some version of that? Um, and if so, what is your answer to that? Because I mean, I'm holding proof positive, and I mean, anybody who knows anything about books knows obviously there's a wealth of writers that come from the state and stay in the state. But what is your answer to that? I'm always curious to know how people respond to that, as if somehow racism or anti DEI is only in Mississippi when this is proof positive what's going on now. It's all over, that kind of thing. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I do get raised eyebrows or sympathy sighs or, people trying to understand. And I just think I respect that people have their own views or limited views of a place. And maybe some people have never been to Mississippi and some people have. So people have different relationships to
That's
it.
right.
But I think that for me, I couldn't imagine being anywhere else like these past 8 years that I have been here.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I was supposed to be making work, partly because, I came from New York, so it's a lot of, I love New York, and I had a lot of hats that I wore, and I was writing a lot, but I was also doing a lot of other things. But being down here allowed me to slow down in ways that I really needed, and it turned me into a bird watcher. It helped me to be less afraid of bugs or whatever, and being bit by a snake or something. And it helped me to learn names of birds, and it just really helped me on a personal level, but also creatively. I really needed that slowdown. Even when I go back to New York now, it's like I'd be itching to get back to something slower.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, while still having love for New York. So I think the slowness, the you know, the trees, the birds, all of that can help. There's also people here that are making work. There's so much inspiration here for me. Some people, I've heard people even say, be surprised, and maybe think of Mississippi as not a place where you can find inspiration, but it's like
Yeah.
everywhere. When I first moved down here, because I thought about the natural world with respect to the history of enslavement, and that's all I kept thinking about. And I just kind of got tired of thinking about that. And I think coinciding with being in workshop and doing different exercises and taking pictures of flowers and things like that, that really helped me to kind of see, oh well, there was peace in the outdoors for us also, or like just so many
Yeah.
things I could say about that. And I started looking at how people use nature in their work, whether they're from the South, which, my students do that a lot in their work. It's like all of them do their work, and
Good.
it just kind of makes its way into your work, the the beautiful parts in particular. So,
Mhm. Can I just say something too? I remember the day when I was still the Grisham writer, and I remember saying something about that very thing to the entire workshop about um in particular people of color's relationship to nature doesn't all have to be sadness. And your
mhm.
face changed so much. Like it was almost like I could almost see the light bulb. It was one of those, it was like a lightning bolt. I saw the lightning bolt. I saw the light bulb in your head. And I remember even saying to my husband, he always picks me up, when he says, how did it go? I said, there's a student named Nadia. I think I'd be surprised if she doesn't write about nature the next poem. And then you did, and then you did and did and did. So it was one of those things I could see some people just be like, this is not nature. We're supposed to be doing poetry only. But your face changed. And the petty part of me is like, look at the result. You know what I mean? Like, so I just
Thank you.
love that you took that. And that goes into my next question. Here, I'm going to start taking questions from everybody in the audience. The one that we started with, or the very first question we have is you said Nadia really got down into the soil of revision. Nadia, do you have any advice on how you made revision dynamic?
Oh, I mean, I showed up to the page. Okay, so I mean, it kind of depends on the poem. That's the fun part for me. I mean, I like getting the words down on the page initially, but the revision process is, it's like research. It's like researching maybe the etymology of a word, or like, um, I don't know, different birds species. I mean, it's hard to kind of explain. It's just showing up each time and trying something different. And I want to make something that surprises me or makes me feel a certain kind of way or certain kinds of ways. And so doing different revision exercises, maybe looking those up too. It's really like a range of things, and just kind of, I don't want the poem to look the same. Like I that cantaloupe poem, I was looking at it. I'm looking down at my sketchbook. I have the sketchbooks from workshops still, and that cantaloupe poem was so different from when it started. That's my goal. Like I'm trying to get something real different, from what I wrote on the page initially, because it doesn't. I know that that's not where the poem starts. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not where the poem ends,
And
rather. It's where it starts, and yeah, it's just kind of showing up to do that, do different things, reading people's work too. I do some of that when I'm revising as well, but it's really fun for me. It's fun because I don't know what's going to happen when I sit down, and that's my goal, to not really know where all
yes.
I'm going to go.
I love it. And and I'll just co-sign, Nadia did the work. She you put in the time to make something new, and not you were never satisfied with just turning in the same old poem, the same old poem. And I think it's just that fire of like, I want to surprise myself. I want to make something new that I didn't think I could make when I woke up this morning, that kind of thing. And that's just so obvious on every page of the book here. I There's an amazing question that's more for kind of like middle school here coming up, but I want to the last question I had because I always want to end on this note of joy. Um, and I think people don't get a chance to talk about this. So what is I asked this of all my friends, people who I'm in conversation with on Zoom as well. Is what is your now that you hold it in your hand, it could be physical, it could be superficial, it could be something really deep. What is your favorite thing about the book? For
Just one. I'm not good at favorite things. I always
you?
have a list. Okay. I really love. What's my answer? It changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
right
right
now
now,
on Tuesday evening, what is your
it's
favorite thing
it's
about the
two things because I don't want to do one. I like how the book feels. I love how CavanKerry books feel, and I
book?
love the cover. The cover is it was actually between my photograph, a photograph that I made and this one, but it wasn't hard for me to choose between the two. This was like the obvious winner to me. And I don't want to butcher his last name. Maybe I don't want his first name is Mike, and I don't want to butcher his last name, so I'm not going to say it. But it's on the back. It's on
Uh-huh.
there. He did a really good job with the cover design and finding those two images and putting them together. Who does that? I don't who thinks to put two images like that? I think that's really cool.
Mhm.
So I
It's
love that.
perfect image for your book, I have to say. It's so good. And I'm shocked
Thank
that, and
you.
on one hand, I'm shocked that it wasn't one of your photographs because they're, like I said, they're works of art, but I think you made the right choice. It fits the content, the mood, the vibe, as my students say, that kind of thing. It's great. I wanted to see, I'm going to get back to that middle school question. A teacher wants to know what poem from Beyond the Watershed would you recommend for seventh graders? So it's about age 12 to
Mm.
13 um, to analyze, many of whom don't have a whole lot of experience with poetry yet. And I know you teach in high school, but picture like 12 to 13-year-olds. What
Mhm.
would you say? I know I have an answer, but I want to hear from you.
Oh, I want to hear your answer.
My answer is just
I have
straight
my
up.
answer
Oh,
because
go ahead.
I saw that question. I saw that
Oh,
question,
oh,
luckily, so I was able to kind of think about it.
straight
The
up, I
first
would
thing
do.
that came to okay.
Sorry. It would
Oh,
be
okay. Yeah, that
hopscotch.
one too.
Yeah,
That one
yeah.
too.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, go ahead, go
Okay.
ahead.
I didn't even think about that, but I
Mm.
think that would be a good one. And they could make their own hopscotch poems. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like use that form. That would be great. Cantaloupe is the one that I thought of as a
Oh,
good
yeah.
like entry level kind of poem, and they won't be, because some of my poems get a little strange. I love strangeness in
Yes.
poetry, and if I didn't have strangeness in this book, I would feel like I failed. But
Mm.
that one is like a nice poem that they can probably enter and do their own, fruit poems or whatever, food poems type of thing. And also, I would look at Joseph Legaspi's poem too. If you do
Oh,
the
that'd be interesting
cantaloupe,
too.
well, I mean, you can look at that and see if that would work. But that's my answer.
Ex-
And the hopscotch poem. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, Amy.
Excellent, excellent. And I think Joseph is actually online watching too. So shout out to Joseph as
Oh,
well.
really? Oh,
Um,
cool. Thank
and
you.
another CavanKerry poet. Sadia actually, speaking of our workshop, Sadia wants to know if you can explain the hopscotch form for inquiring minds
Yeah.
and Sadia's mind.
Well, everybody, well, a lot of people know how to play hopscotch, right? So you just kind of go straight, and I think you can do that with this poem with reading it from top to bottom. But what I like about this poem, where I'm trying to find what page it's on, is that you can read it in different ways. So it probably, it's like a rebellious hopscotch poem. If you're doing that, like you're not really. Um, so you can read it like a hopscotch board, like you're hopping, or you can hop around. And I don't think that I don't have any like instructions for hopping around. I think you can kind of find your way. It works in multiple ways. Oh, thank you
Oh,
for
here we
pulling it
go.
up. Okay.
Nice.
You can read it from the bottom. I've read it in different ways. That is what the poem looks like, and it
Really?
didn't look like
Can
that
you read
at
it out loud?
first.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sure, I
Can you read
can
it out
read it.
loud?
I'm
It's
gonna
just
read
so
it from
great.
my book.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying to
great.
see if I can find. I actually have the original one, which was like in a heart. It was in a shape poem. It was like
Hmm.
the heart doily,
Yep.
and I took it out of that. Hopscotch. Safe place for gold hoop earrings and hair buns and pink bobos. Engine for wins and losses above faded white paint. Toss a penny, see where it lands, and hop with the spirit of dreams and shoulders free. Of the breaking and the heavy we never asked for. And it's somebody's birth month, and soon we will be on summer vacation in this park, turning toward home again, turning the wired double dutch rope to live longer. Loud car music rivals our hollering as we hop and hop across unbent lines, leaves on a ground we may never forget. We may never forget leaves on a ground across unbent lines, turning the wired double dutch rope to live longer. And it's somebody's birth month, and soon we will be on summer vacation in this park, turning toward home again. Safe place for gold hoop earrings and hair buns and pink bobos. Of the breaking and the heavy we never asked for. Toss a penny, see where it lands, and hop with the spirit of dreams and shoulders free. Loud car music rivals our hollering as we hop and hop. I'm going to stop there. So I just kind of hopped around. So I kind of want people to hop around. Um, and
So
that
good.
was fun to write. Thank you.
So great. I there's a follow-up question from Joshua. I have to read out loud because it's so funny. I don't know if you saw it. Of course,
No, I
Joshua,
didn't.
one amazing poet. Also, shout out to University of Mississippi MFA program and PhD program. He wants to know, do you need to play hopscotch outside while writing the hopscotch form?
No, but you can think back to your experiences, you know, playing hopscotch. But that might be fun to do it while you're reading or something. I don't know. Thank you for that
I
question, Joshua.
I think so. I think so. I love it. I think there needs to be a hopscotch board made out of tape at AWP, Dimitri. Let's go. Let's get on it. There you go. Just tape. And let me see here. There's another question, I believe. Oh, so someone else, grad 2022, wants to know, do you foresee yourself continuing to merge nature photography into your poetry books? Like, is this going to be a thing now? Is this going to be the Nadia Alexis move? What's going on now?
That's a good question. I don't, maybe it'll happen again. I'm not opposed to it. Maybe it'll be a different set of photographs.
Mm.
I do. There's a visual poet named Monica Ong who has a book coming out in May, but she has a book that came out, way back, like maybe 2014, 15 or something. It's called Silent Anatomies, and she does amazing things with visuals in her poetry. And I mean, she has exhibited her work as well. I'm interested in kind of learning more things that I can do with the visual medium. And she's one of my inspirations, and why I even was like, oh, I could put photography in this book. I didn't even know you could do that in a poetry book. And so, shout out to her. I always bring her name up because it really opened up a lot for me. And that's the power of reading, other people's work, and especially contemporary poets.
Excellent. See, there's you just being so good about bringing the we together here. Love it. We have time for a couple more questions. So last chance to type in some questions here. While that's going on, Nadia, I wanted to ask for you, what is, could you talk a little bit about maybe you're talking, someone else was talking about the future, but what you're working on currently? I know it's hard because you have so many things going on right now, but what are some future projects? I know I have a little bit of insight because one of them that I'm very interested in was part of your dissertation. But I want to see if I didn't know if you wanted to share that yet. I also respect that as well. But I know people are always going to be curious, like, what's next? I finished reading Beyond the Watershed. What else is Nadia working on?
Yeah, I'm working on a young adult novel in verse and
Yay.
revising that because the dissertation version was very much, I got it done, but I'm
Oh, come
working on
on. It was
revising
good. It was
that.
good. It was good.
Thank you. And I'm part of a community called The Sanctuary, and it's for women writers of color, and we do weekly co-writes. There's multiple co-writes per like every day of the week. Someone's hosting a co-write. So I had been going to those. I had to step away recently for reasons, but I was doing writing, revising in those spaces, and I'm working on a new poetry collection as well. But I've kind of paused on that for the immediate moment. But those are the two things um, that I'm working on. I'm not making photographs right now, so and I haven't for a while. I mean, other than whatever I do on my phone, but yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh, I'm so excited, and I'm calling it too. I know your young adult novel in verse is coming out, and I know it's going to be amazing as well. So I can't wait to see. So I not to put pressure, but I want you to dig in more to those revisions because the world needs it as well. Nadia, it has been so wonderful. I want to just double check and make sure if there's other people here. Think we got everybody. Um, I just feel so honored to share this whole month of blooming with you and to have it happening in literally a month of blooming. I was just talking about how the campus is filled with daffodils right now. It's such an honor, and I do really mean it. I don't really have a poker face, so you can see if I'm lying or not. You have taught me so much about just being just a good community member, but someone who just brings their all to the table. And I just so appreciate your calming presence. I want the world to get to know you through these poems. Um, and like I said, this is the one that there's not, I know you gave different shout outs to people, but this is just so beautiful. CavanKerry makes the most beautiful, it's just a good book to hold in your hands. Look at these French flaps. So
Mhm.
please fix your life, get one of these and get this also for a friend. I don't have to tell you that graduation and Mother's Day is coming up. Boom, you're done already. So just click, you know, order, and then you're done. So um, uh, Nadia, thank you so much for asking me to join you today. And these poems, I'm just so happy to see them fly.
Thank you, Amy. That was wonderful. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, everybody who came through. And I'm saving the chat so I can go back and look at the stuff and cry and be happy. And I'm just really grateful to be here, to have been able to put out this book because, not everyone survives. And so I'm really grateful that part of the reason why I had to be here was to do that. And so I'm excited. So thank
Mm,
y'all so much.
mm.
Yeah, and thank you. Please,
Yay.
a round of applause for Amy and Nadia. This was a
Oh no, not
gorgeous,
y'all.
gorgeous evening. Thank you
Nadia.
all both so much. And yes, yo, the books, they're so beautiful. Please get one if you haven't. In the chat, we have the links on how you can follow CavanKerry Press, where to catch your next readings, where to get Nadia's book. etc. Please get it for your friends. Come see us at AWP. We'll be there. We would love to shake your hand, sharing the hugs, sharing the book signings, and all that jazz. At this point in time, Gabe, if you could let everyone else on so we can give a congratulatory round of applause, shake the Zoom room, and before we all go to bed, that would be great. We're taking you all right now, and thank you all again so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Nadia.
Thank
Congrats
you.
all for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Nadia.
Congrats,
Thank
Nadia.
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Thank you both
Enjoy
so
reading
much.
number 39, everyone.
Thank you.